My sister picked up my 6-year-old and tossed her into the deep pool. She knew my daughter couldn't swim. My daughter screamed. I was the only one who jumped in to save her. After that, I didn't cry. I did this. 2 weeks later, their lives started to unravel. It was supposed to be a simple family weekend. Every disaster in my life starts with the words family weekend. My daughter Aria was doing something brave, something tiny, ridiculous, ordinary, unless you were 6 years old and terrified of water. She was standing ankle-deep in the toddler splash pad behind our holiday rental, gripping my hand like the ground might swallow her. The water barely reached her toes, but her whole little body trembled. "You're doing great," I whispered. She nodded, breath shaky, towel waiting behind her like an escape plan. My sister Janelle's kids, Zach and Paige, were at the real pool, the deep one, launching themselves into it like caffeinated stunt doubles. They screamed, splashed, and caused small tsunamis with every cannonball. "Come on, Arya, it's just water," Zach yelled. Paige added, "You're such a chicken." Arya flinched like the droplets were bullets. I shot Janelle the universal, "Your children are being demons" look. She shrugged without a hint of shame. "Relax, Leah. They're helping her toughen up." Right. That's how my sister parents, chaos as character development. My parents sat in plastic loungers nearby, nodding sagely like they were presiding over a TED Talk on bravery. "You baby her too much," my mother said. My father added, "Kids need a push." Of course I was the problem. That's just the family position on everything. Arya took a tiny step forward. 1 inch. That was all. Then she stepped back out, shaking and proud, and sat beside me wrapped in her towel. Honestly, my heart nearly burst. "Mom?" she whispered. "I did it." "Yes," I said. "You really did." And this is where a narrator with hindsight would warn you the peace was temporary. But I didn't know that yet. What I did know, I wasn't allowed to swim. Minor procedure, stitches, no water. Arya wasn't swimming either. Full body fear, and the rental house had plenty to do besides the stupid pool. So when I stood and told her, "I'm going to use the bathroom. I'll be right back," nothing about it felt dangerous. She nodded, tucked into her towel like a baby chick, and stayed right where I left her. I walked off. Maybe 30 seconds. A minute at most. Then I heard it. A scream. Sharp. Pure panic. A child's scream. My child's scream. My heart dropped so hard it hurt I ran. I don't remember crossing the patio or the yard. I just remember reaching the pool and seeing the thing that should never happen to a terrified 6-year-old. Arya was in the deep end. My daughter, who panics when the bathwater touches her ears, was sinking, thrashing, choking, fighting for the surface. And my entire family, my parents, my sister, her husband, their children, stood around like spectators at a wildlife documentary. Zach and Paige were frozen on the edge. Fascinated, Derek clutched a beer. My parents looked mildly inconvenienced. And Janelle, arms crossed, expression annoyed. Not one of them reached for her. I didn't know how she got in. Slip? Trip? A push? I didn't have time to think. I dove. Clothes, shoes, stitches. The whole lot. The chlorine hit my wound like acid, but pain was a luxury I couldn't afford. I got to her and hauled her above the surface. Her sobs tore into my shoulder, hands gripping the fabric of my shirt as if she could fuse herself into my ribs. "Got you. I've got you," I kept whispering, though my voice shook. When we got out of the pool, she clung to me so tightly I could barely breathe. "How did she—" I asked, my voice already breaking. Arya gasped, trembling so violently I felt it in my bones. "Aunt Janelle, she picked me up. She threw me. I couldn't breathe." She threw her, I turned to Janelle, barely seeing her through the red fog in my head. You threw my her? Janelle rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Leah. This is how kids learn Zach and Paige are amazing swimmers. And you've seen those TikTok videos where instructors toss babies in? It works. That, I said, choking on rage, is not the same thing. My mother chimed in, tone dripping judgment. You're overreacting. And my father, never one to miss an opportunity for disappointment. You always make things worse with your dramatics. Arya's little voice broke against my shoulder. I thought I was going to die. Please don't make me go in again. Something inside me shifted hard, cold, final. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I didn't even look at them again. I wrapped Arya tighter, grabbed our bags one-handed, and walked. Leah! Janelle yelled. Oh my God! Don't be so dramatic! I kept walking. People who look back still expect empathy. I didn't. Arya cried the first 10 minutes of the drive, then exhaustion swallowed her whole, and she fell asleep in the passenger seat. Damp hair sticking to her cheek, tiny fists still curled. I stared at the road ahead, hands locked on the wheel. I didn't cry. I did something else. 2 weeks later, their lives started to unravel. I wish I could say what Janelle did to Arya came out of nowhere, but if I'm being honest, it was the last chapter of a story that started decades ago. Growing up, I was the cautious one. That's the polite version. My family had other words. Scaredy cat. Too quiet. Overthinker. And my personal favorite, dramatic, said by people who have never recognized an emotion in their lives. My older sister, Janelle, she was the opposite. A tornado in human form. Climbed everything, jumped off anything, ran headfirst into danger like she had a death wish wrapped in confidence my parents loved it. Look how brave she is! Fearless. Just like her mother. Meanwhile, I was the one saying, maybe don't sprint toward the cliff edge, and being told, stop being so negative, Leah. That was the parenting style. If you weren't reckless, you were wrong. My relationship with water was the first casualty. I didn't have a phobia like Arya, but I hated being splashed in the face and I hated waves. You would think a normal family would respect that. Mine enrolled me in swim club. 3 years, twice a week. Practice until she stops acting scared. Fear wasn't something to understand. It was something to punish. By high school, the roles were locked in. Janelle equals fearless star. Me equals fragile disappointment. You'd think adulthood would fix things, maybe with distance and therapy and, I don't know, a functioning prefrontal cortex. Nope. We grew up, but the dynamic didn't. Janelle became the adult version of a roller coaster. Exciting to watch, dangerous to ride, constantly on the brink of shutting down for safety violations. She chased thrills, trips, hobbies, adventures, and debt. My parents weren't far behind her, still throwing money at experiences while ignoring things like bills, budgets, or basic math. And me? I committed the family's greatest crime. I chose stability. I became an accountant, a job my parents described as soul-crushing and for people with no imagination. I bought a sensible car. I didn't go bungee jumping. I didn't buy kayaks. I didn't chase living life to the fullest, otherwise known as poor impulse control. The funny thing about stable people, we become the safety net for unstable ones. I paid emergency bills, covered temporary loans that lasted longer than some marriages, co-signed a loan for Janelle's flashy car because her credit score was basically arterial bleeding, put my name on my parents' mortgage extension because theirs was radioactive, and the whole time they mocked me. Leah, you're so boring. Loosen up. You need adventure in your life. It's amazing how people think you're dull while holding out their hands for help. Then Arya was born, and I recognized something in her immediately. Not fear exactly, but sensitivity. Caution. careful observation. The things my family despised on sight. Her fear of water was intense, instinctive. When she was a toddler and bathwater touched her ears, she shook. Not theatrically, not for attention. Her body just reacted. I knew that feeling. Not as strong as hers, but enough to understand it wasn't a choice. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't weakness. But my family didn't see it that way. History doesn't just repeat in my family, it accelerates. The first time Arya refused to go near the beach, my mother sighed, "Oh, great, another one." Another sensitive child. Another one who wouldn't fit their mold. Janelle said, "Just dunk her. She'll get over it." I told her to stop giving 1950s parenting advice, but she laughed and said I was soft. Her kids, Zach and Paige, were the golden grandchildren. Confident swimmers, fearless jumpers, the kind who shout, "Watch this," before doing something that requires medical insurance. Every time they leapt into water, my parents clapped. Every time Arya hid behind me, they judged. "Look at the difference," Mom whispered once, not quietly. And that stung in a way I don't think she'll ever understand. But the worst part was this. I genuinely believed I could protect Arya by staying close, staying patient, staying calm. I genuinely believed they would never push her too far. I should have walked away from them years earlier, but I didn't. And because I didn't, they took the first chance they got to prove I was wrong. What happened next made the pool incident look gentle. By the time I pulled into our driveway after the pool incident, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the keys. Arya was asleep in the passenger seat, or more accurately, passed out from exhaustion. Little fists still curled like she was bracing for the water to pull her under again. My husband, Simon, opened the front door before I even reached it. One look at my face, then at Arya's wet hair and blotchy cheeks, and he froze. "What happened?" he whispered. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't have the strength. "Janelle threw her," I said flatly. "Into the deep end." Simon went still. Not the dramatic kind of still, the dangerous kind. The kind that comes right before something explodes. "She threw her?" I nodded once. That was all it took. Simon's whole body clenched like he was trying not to punch the universe. I got Arya out of the car and carried her inside. Yes, carried, because even unconscious, she clung to me like I was the last dry place on earth. I laid her on her bed. She stirred, whimpered, then immediately relaxed only when she realized I was still there. The kind of reaction a child has when they've been truly terrified. I tucked her in gently. For the first time in my life, silence hurt. Simon sat beside me, voice low. "What now?" I looked at Arya's tiny shaking breaths, the trauma still visible even in sleep. "Now," I said, "we stop pretending they're normal." When I went downstairs, something inside me shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just permanently. I walked to my laptop, opened it, and, without fury, without shaking, began ending things. Step 1. The mortgage. Every month I'd been contributing to my parents' payments because family sticks together. Right, cancel. Step 2. The refinancing. They were counting on my income to secure a better rate when their fixed term ended. I removed myself from the application with a single click. Then I called the bank. A polite man answered, and I matched his politeness with icy calm. "I need to withdraw my consent to co-sign my parents' renewal," I said. "It's effective immediately." There was a short pause. "That will affect their eligibility." "Good," I said, and meant it. Next, Janelle's car. Ah, yes. The car. The flashy, impractical, high-payment monstrosity she loved bragging about. The one she couldn't afford without my signature floating under it like a financial life raft I called the loan company. I'm removing my authorization for payment guarantees, I said. Another pause. Another polite voice. That will put the account at risk. Perfect. I wasn't cutting them off, I was handing their lives back to them. The next morning it began. I wasn't even done pouring coffee before my phone started vibrating like it was possessed. Mom calling. Decline. Dad calling. Decline. Janelle calling. Decline. Then all three at once. I sighed and answered before the house woke up. The noise was instant. What did you do? The bank is saying, we can't afford this. Are you insane? You're overreacting. That was nothing. She just needed... I didn't speak. I let the chaos burn itself out. Then, when they paused long enough to breathe, I said one sentence. She could have died because of you. A beat of silence, and then, of course, laughter. Laughter. Mom. You're so dramatic. Dad. You always exaggerate. Janelle. If you hadn't jumped in, she'd probably be swimming by now. Swimming. My 6-year-old child who screams if bathwater hits her ears. I hung up mid-sentence. I didn't want to hear what came next. I already knew the script. I'd lived it my whole life. When I went back upstairs, Arya was awake, curled into a tight ball at the edge of her bed. She flinched when the bathroom faucet dripped. She asked, tiny and trembling, "Is the water going to come out fast?" "No," I said gently. "Can I skip the shower?" "Of course." She hesitated, then whispered, "The water pulled me. I thought it wanted me." I sat beside her and wrapped her in my arms. "They think bravery is jumping off cliffs," I murmured. "They don't understand the courage it took for you to stand in that tiny splash pad yesterday." She leaned into me, and for a moment, everything was still, but not peaceful, not yet. That night, while Simon made dinner, I watched Arya at the table, trying to color. Her hands shook, but she kept coloring anyway. A tiny act of persistence, a tiny act of bravery no one but me would ever understand. "She's braver than any of them," I said under my breath. Simon looked up, confused. I shook my head. "Nothing." The truth was too big to say out loud. I thought pulling her out of the pool was the end of it, that I'd done the hard part, that the nightmare was over. But trauma doesn't end when the danger ends. And families like mine, they don't apologize, they retaliate. I didn't know it that night, watching Arya press her crayon a little too hard against the paper. I didn't know they were already planning something worse, something loud, something reckless, something that would change everything again. But I'd learn soon, because 2 weeks later, they didn't just ignore a boundary, they crossed one I didn't even know could be crossed. And when they did, all hell broke loose. The school parking lot was half empty when I pulled in that afternoon. I was humming, an actual hum, something light, because for once, after 2 weeks of nightmares and whispered reassurances, Arya had slept through the night I walked into the office expecting the same routine we'd done 100 times. Sign in, smile at the secretary, go home. Instead, the secretary looked up and said the sentence that dropped me straight out of my own body. "Oh, you just missed her. She was picked up early." Everything inside me froze. "Picked up by who?" She glanced at the form on her clipboard like it was nothing, her grandmother and aunt. It was on her emergency contact list. My heart punched my ribs so hard I swear I heard it. My parents. Janelle. The people I had just cut off. The people who had nearly drowned my child. The people I explicitly told to stay away. I couldn't breathe. "They're not allowed to pick her up," I managed. "Not anymore." The secretary blinked, confused but not alarmed. "Well, they were on the list, so—" I didn't let her finish. I was already dialing. I called my mother. No answer. I called my father. No answer. I called Janelle. Straight to voicemail. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I called again. And again. And again. Nothing. I felt something inside me split open. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. Something cold. Something that whispered, "You know what they're capable of." I dialed 911. "My 6-year-old daughter has been taken without permission," I said. My voice was thin, almost clinical. "Her last contact with these people resulted in physical endangerment. I need help. Now." The dispatcher didn't waste time. Officers were on their way. For the first time that day, I breathed. Not deeply, just enough to stay upright. The officers arrived at the school in minutes. I retold everything in quick, clipped sentences. No crying, no dramatics, just facts. "They had emergency permission for true emergencies only," I said. "They've never used it. Ever. Until today. And they knew they weren't supposed to take her?" "Yes." "And you believe she's in danger?" I thought of Arya's screams when she hit the water, her trembling hands, her nightmares. "Yes," I said. "I absolutely do." They didn't question it. One officer stepped aside to radio dispatch. The other asked for descriptions, phone numbers, vehicle details, everything I could give. Simon arrived 10 minutes later, practically skidding into the lot. "What happened?" he demanded. I didn't even answer. The look on my face told him everything. Then the radio crackled. "Location found." My stomach dropped. A community swimming pool. Of course. Of course. Janelle had taken Arya, my water-phobic, traumatized 6-year-old, to another pool. I didn't think I didn't breathe. I just ran to the car. The officers followed. Simon drove like the road was dissolving under us. I kept seeing Arya's face from 2 weeks ago. Bluish lips, eyes wide, clinging to me with shaking hands. I couldn't lose her again, not even for a second. When we pulled up, my legs nearly gave out. I didn't wait for the officers. I didn't wait for Simon. I sprinted through the lobby, through the changing area, through the echoing mess of tile and chlorine. And then I heard it. Crying. Small high. Panicked. My daughter. I ran so fast I slipped on the wet floor, but I got there, and what I saw made something in me snap clean in half. Arya was backed into a corner of the pool deck, clutching a dry towel to her chest like armor. Tears streaked down her face. Her whole body shook. My parents stood nearby. Janelle was next to them, and beside her was a man I'd never seen, a swim instructor by the look of his goggles and shirt. They weren't throwing her in again. This time, they were trying to coach her, force her, convince her that the problem was her fear, not their cruelty. "We're trying to help her," my mother snapped before I said a word. "She needs to learn to swim," Dad added. "She'll thank us one day," Janelle chimed in, voice bright and poisonous. I didn't yell, didn't scream. I just said, "Arya." She looked up. The second she saw me, she ran, full sprint, into my arms, sobbing so hard she hiccuped. I lifted her, held her tight, and turned to the officer behind me. "That's my daughter," I said. "I did not give permission for this." The officer stepped between me and my family. My mother spluttered, "We're family!" He held up a hand. "Ma'am, you were not authorized to take this child. You'll need to step back." Janelle scoffed. "Are you kidding? We're fixing her fear. Leah is the problem. Always has been." The officer looked at me. "You want to press custodial interference?" "Yes," I said. "Immediately." My parents froze. Janelle's mouth fell open. "You wouldn't do that," she hissed. "You threw my child into a pool," I said. "And today you took her from school without permission, so yes, I absolutely would." The rest moved fast. statements, warnings, a formal report. A very awkward moment when the instructor realized he'd been pulled into a family meltdown and quietly exited the building. Arya clung to me the whole time. She refused to look at any of them, not once. When it was finally done and the officers walked us to the car, she whispered, "Can we go home now?" I kissed her forehead. "Yes, baby. We're going home." That night, while Simon sat with Arya and read her a story, I filed the cease and desist, removed every emergency pickup permission, cut the final strings of financial tethering. Mortgage, gone. Car, gone. All access, gone blocked, permanently. I didn't care if they screamed, I didn't care if they spiraled, and I definitely didn't care if their lives fell apart. They crossed the line. And I was done. Arya fell asleep in her own bed, breathing slowly, safely, deeply. I stood in the doorway, the light from the hall catching the soft curve of her cheek, and thought, if this is what protecting her costs, I'd pay it 1,000 times. And then I closed her door. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Blocked numbers, all of them. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Tomorrow would take care of itself. But for the first time in weeks, I knew this. They were finished. And we were finally free. 3 years later, I barely recognize the life we live now, quiet, steady, almost boring in the best possible way. There's a baby in the house now, toddling around with fists full of crackers and a talent for chaos. Arya adores him. She's 9, taller, still cautious, still sensitive, but peaceful. A different child than the one shaking in my arms in that pool. As for my family, they folded fast. Janelle lost her car within months. The repo truck came at dawn, and judging from the screaming voice memo she left me, it was a performance worthy of an Oscar. My parents tried to refinance their mortgage without my name. Spoiler, it didn't happen. Their payments doubled overnight. Within a year, the house was gone, sold off in a panic, then replaced with a cramped rental on the edge of a town where no one knows them and no one cares. Their social circle evaporated too. Turns out word about that pool incident traveled faster than chlorine. I didn't have to lift a finger. They did all the unraveling themselves. Meanwhile, Arya healed slowly. Baths became tolerable again. Then showers. She still wouldn't go near a pool, and I didn't push it. Not once. But courage has a quiet way of showing up when you least expect it. A few months ago, we were at a kiddie pool with the baby. Shallow water, barely ankle deep. He slipped. Just a little stumble, but enough to make him yelp. I froze. For a heartbeat, I was back in that backyard, watching her drown. But Arya? She moved first. She ran straight into the water, scooped her brother up under his arms, and held him until he stopped crying. Her knees were shaking. Her voice was trembling. But she did it. She didn't even look back to see if I was coming. It wasn't deep. It wasn't dangerous. But for her, it was a mountain. She hasn't lost her fear. But now she knows, with absolute certainty, that she can rise above it when someone needs her. Fear didn't make her weak. Love made her brave. So what do you think? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more. My parents kicked me out of the car and left me alone at a gas station while the rest of the family went to Disneyland. "Just take the bus home," my mom snapped. I did this instead. 10 years later, they are still begging me to return and save them. My name's Mia, and I used to believe in magic. Not the card trick kind, or the Harry Potter kind, but the real kind. The kind that happens when your whole family finally agrees on something, and your parents don't fight during dinner, and your little brother doesn't break your stuff for fun. The kind of magic that makes big, impossible things, like going to Disneyland, suddenly feel like they could actually happen. I had been counting down the days. Literally. I had a little calendar in my closet, hidden behind my shoe rack where no one would see it and make fun of me. I circled the date in gold pen. I wrote Disney in all caps with 3 exclamation marks. It was the kind of thing you don't even dare get excited about in case the universe hears you and changes its mind. I was 12, and this was going to be the first real vacation we'd ever taken as a family. Well, first for me. My older sister had gone to Vegas with our aunt once. My younger siblings had a trip to Legoland a few years earlier when I was grounded for talking back after asking why I was the only one doing dishes. But this time, it was all of us. Together. That's what they said anyway. I had to earn it, though. My mom made a list that looked suspiciously like her own to-do list, then told me it was mine if I wanted to prove I deserved the trip. Clean out the garage, organize the pantry, watch the twins every Saturday so she could run errands, aka disappear for 3 hours and come back with Starbucks and a mysterious new haircut. I did it all, even when my brother sprayed ketchup all over the garage floor after I'd just cleaned it. Even when my little sister poured cereal on the dog. I just cleaned and kept my mouth shut, because Disneyland was the prize at the end of this game show, and I wasn't about to get voted off the island. The morning of the trip, I was up before everyone else. My bag had been packed for 3 days, repacked twice just in case. I had snacks, a disposable camera, sunscreen, and a tiny bottle of hand sanitizer because my mom once said you couldn't touch anything at Disneyland without catching a stomach bug you'll regret. We loaded up the car. I got the middle seat, of course, because I was the smallest, which wasn't even true, but arguing wasn't worth it. I pressed my backpack against the window and tried to look happy and non-threatening. That was my secret strategy for surviving family outings. Don't make waves, don't ask questions, don't get noticed. The first hour went okay. My siblings fought over a juice box. My dad yelled about the GPS. My mom said she had a headache and put in her earbuds. In other words, standard family road trip vibes. Then we pulled off at a gas station. One of those dusty ones on the edge of nothing, where the bathrooms are locked and the snack aisle has more jerky than sense. "We're stopping for gas," my dad muttered. "Everyone out, stretch your legs," my mom added. I slid out of the car, careful not to knock my little brother's foot, which apparently would have been a federal offense. I didn't even complain when my older sister took the last of the Gatorade and told me to deal with it. I stood near the front of the car, looking around, waiting. They didn't get out. Instead, the engine revved. I frowned. "Are you guys just pulling up to the pump, or—" My mom rolled down her window halfway. "You're staying here." "What?" "We'll be back," she said, voice flat. "Just take a minute and think about how you've been acting." I blinked. What did I— "We don't have time for another meltdown, Mia," my dad cut in. "Get your attitude together." And then they drove off. I stood there, frozen, trying to process what had just happened. At first, I genuinely thought it was a joke. Like, haha, you left your kid at a gas station. Classic family prank. But 5 minutes passed, then 10. I walked inside the little store, pretending to browse gum. The guy behind the counter gave me a weird look. He had long hair pulled into a ponytail and a name tag that said Jake in permanent marker. "Hey," he said eventually. "You Mia?" I stopped mid-step. "Yeah?" "Your mom just called. She said you know which bus to take. Told me to give you this." He handed me a turkey sandwich in shrink wrap and a warm bottle of Sprite. I stared at them like they were evidence in a crime scene, which I guess they kind of were. "They're not coming back?" I asked, like maybe I'd misheard. Jake gave a one-shouldered shrug. "Didn't sound like it." The next few minutes were a blur. I stepped outside again. The sun was brutal. The plastic wrapper on the sandwich felt hot and greasy in my hands. There was a tiny covered bench near the edge of the lot where the bus stop sign was. I sat there and stared at the posted schedule like it was written in ancient code. One bus route went home. I recognized the name of the stop near our street. Another went somewhere else. Not far, but not home. I thought about my room, the one I shared with my little sister. The one with the peeling posters and the crooked dresser and the lock that never worked. I thought about coming back and pretending like this didn't happen. Pretending like this was just another punishment, another lesson, another way to remind me I wasn't the good kid. And I thought, no, just that. Number. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just sat there, still holding that damn turkey sandwich, and waited for the right bus. Not the one that went home. The other one. The one going somewhere else. The one that meant I wasn't playing this game anymore. Because even at 12, I knew that if people show you exactly how little they value you, you don't stay to give them a second chance to prove it. I stepped onto the bus, handed the driver a crumpled $5 bill from the bottom of my backpack, and took a seat by the window. I didn't look back, and I didn't go home. Not that day. Not ever. You'd be surprised how quiet a bus can feel when your entire life has just cracked in half. I sat by the window and watched dry trees flick past, holding that sad little sandwich in my lap like it was going to explain something to me. I didn't eat it. I didn't cry either. Not because I wasn't sad. I just didn't want to give the universe the satisfaction. The truth is, I wasn't shocked they left me. Not really. I was 12. Old enough to know what it means when your family's love comes with conditions, and mine always did. Clean the kitchen. Maybe you get dessert. Watch the twins without attitude. Maybe you don't get grounded. Be invisible. Maybe you don't get yelled at. I don't think there was a moment I realized I was the scapegoat. It wasn't a big reveal, more like 100 tiny, sharp moments that eventually connect into a picture you can't unsee. Like when my brother flooded the upstairs bathroom and blamed it on me, and no one even asked for my side. Or when I got an A on my science project and my mom said, "Don't act like you're better than everyone." Or when my older sister borrowed my birthday money and then cried when I asked for it back, so I ended up apologizing. To her. In our house, feelings were currency, and I was always in debt. There was this one afternoon, I was maybe 9, when I cleaned the whole kitchen after dinner without being asked. I was hoping for one of those rare good moods from my mom. She walked in, looked at the empty sink, then frowned. "You trying to make your sister look bad?" she said. I didn't answer. There wasn't a right answer anyway. That was the rule. If something went wrong, it was my fault. If something went right, it was still my fault. Because someone else didn't get credit. And somehow, I believed that was normal. The first half of the bus ride, I kept checking the window like they'd come driving up in the car, honking and yelling, "Okay, joke's over! Get in!" But they didn't. Of course they didn't. Instead, I pulled out a battered envelope from the back of my backpack. I'd kept it for months, tucked inside a notebook where no one would find it. It was from my grandmother. Not my mom's mom. That woman once told me I had self-pity eyes. No, this was my dad's mom, Grandma Nora. She sent me a card on my birthday every year, even when the rest of the family forgot. The last one had a note in shaky handwriting. "If you're ever nearby, come visit. You always have a place here." I hadn't seen her since I was 7. She lived a couple cities over, and we didn't visit much. My mom said she was a handful. What that really meant was that Grandma Nora didn't put up with BS. And neither would I. Not anymore. I got off the bus and walked 2 miles with a blister forming on my heel. I didn't tell her I was coming. I didn't know what I'd say. But when she opened the door and saw me, her expression flickered from confusion to horror to something quiet and warm. She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. She just stepped aside and said, "You look hungry." That night, I slept on the couch with a warm blanket and a belly full of grilled cheese. No screaming, no slammed doors, just a grandfather clock ticking in the hallway and the distant hum of an old fridge. The next morning, over tea and a plate of sad-looking toast, she said, "Sweetheart, I love you, but I'm not exactly in shape to raise a kid." I nodded. I don't need to be raised. I just need somewhere safe. She looked at me for a long time. I think she was measuring something behind my eyes. Then she said, "Okay." She meant it too. She didn't hover. She didn't interrogate. She let me find my own rhythm, and I let her find hers. At first, I tried to be invisible. Old habits. I did the dishes before she asked, took out the trash, organized her pantry. She finally looked at me one day and said, "You're not an unpaid maid, you know." I said, "No, but I'm a house guest." "And I clean?" She snorted. "Your family." And just like that, something shifted. The first time my mom called, I didn't answer. Neither did I the second time. Or the third. I could see the voicemails piling up. I didn't listen to a single one. I just watched the number grow and thought, now you know how it feels to be ignored. At school, I told the counselor that I was living with a grandparent temporarily. She raised an eyebrow. I stared her down. Temporarily is a flexible word. A few weeks later, I got a job at the library shelving books. It paid peanuts, but it made me feel like I mattered. I started buying my own stuff, shampoo, pencils, lunch. It wasn't about the money, it was about not having to ask. Because here's the thing, when you grow up being treated like you owe everyone everything, earning your own anything feels like freedom. My parents sent one more message. Just one. It said, "Mia, this has gone on long enough. Come home. We can talk about everything when you're ready to apologize." I stared at that line for a full minute before laughing. Not a happy laugh. One of those hollow, stunned laughs where the absurdity hits so hard it leaves a bruise. "Apologize." "Right." I didn't reply. Instead, I deleted the message and walked into the kitchen, where Grandma Nora was flipping through a newspaper and swearing under her breath at a crossword puzzle. 21 across, I said, pointing. "It's vindication." She looked up and smirked. "That's a big word for a kid." "Not really," I said. "I earned it." And in that moment, something crystallized in me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was choosing who I lived with, who I answered to, who I let in, and most importantly, who I didn't. Turns out, you can build a whole new life from scratch with 3 things: a stubborn streak, decent Wi-Fi, and a grandmother who doesn't ask you to earn your place at the table. Living with Grandma Nora wasn't always easy. She was 72, had arthritis in both knees, and believed that every problem could be solved with tea and a sternly worded letter. But she never once raised her voice at me, never asked me to shrink myself, never made me feel like a burden. The first year was the hardest. I had no idea how to be a normal kid, whatever that even means. At school, I kept waiting for people to yell at me for being in the wrong hallway or for breathing too loudly. At home, I over-apologized for everything, using too much dish soap, leaving the light on, existing. One night, I said sorry for finishing the last of the cereal. Grandma set down her tea and looked me dead in the eyes. "Stop that," she said. "You don't have to apologize for being hungry." And just like that, something shifted. I got used to the silence. Real silence. Not the kind that buzzes with tension, but the kind where you can hear your own thoughts. I stopped walking on eggshells. I stopped bracing for impact every time I said something with an opinion. I also started taking care of things. Not because I was expected to, not because someone made a chart with stickers and punishments, just because it felt good to contribute. I vacuumed without being asked. I folded laundry. I made dinner on Fridays so Grandma could put her feet up and watch her terrible detective shows in peace. She had a thing for brooding British men who solved crimes with emotional baggage and good cheekbones. When the furnace broke, I called a repair guy. When the fridge started leaking, I watched a YouTube tutorial and fixed it myself. Slowly, I became the kind of person I used to wish for. Reliable, calm, capable. My family didn't go away, of course. Not straight away, anyway. They kept reaching out. Texts, emails, voicemails. Sometimes angry, sometimes guilt-trippy, sometimes weirdly casual, like nothing had happened. Your sister made honor roll. Thought you'd want to know. She still asks about you. Your room's still here, Mia. We're all waiting for you to come home. I never answered. At first it hurt. Then it didn't. After a while, I realized the only reason they wanted me back was because they needed someone to fill the same role I'd always filled. The cleaner, the fixer, the punching bag. The one who kept the family machine running while everyone else just coasted. And I was done being the spare part in someone else's life. By the time I turned 16, I had my first real savings account. It didn't have much, but it was mine. I picked up extra shifts at the library, then started helping at a local bookstore on weekends. I learned how to budget, how to stretch pasta into 4 meals, how to file taxes without bursting into tears. Mostly. I also learned how to say no. No, I can't lend you money. No, I don't want to talk about it. No, I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. Grandma backed me every time, even when she didn't fully understand why. I don't like to speak badly about your parents, she said once, which was her way of saying, I absolutely will if you push me. But I will say this, you don't owe them what they refuse to give you. That sentence stayed with me. Still does. When I graduated high school, Grandma took me out to dinner at the diner down the street, where the waitress always gave me extra whipped cream. She slid a little box across the table. Inside was a silver key. Your key to the house, she said, like it wasn't already mine in every way that mattered. I almost cried, but instead I smiled, tucked it in my pocket, and told her I'd make pancakes the next morning. After high school, I started working full-time and taking classes part-time at the community college. It wasn't glamorous. I paid for everything: books, tuition, late-night snacks, heating bills. I even surprised Grandma with a new recliner for her birthday, which made her cry harder than I'd ever seen. We had our routines: Monday night crossword puzzles, Sunday grocery runs, evening tea, always too hot, always served with unsolicited advice. Don't date boys who ask you to shrink. Never trust a man who won't eat leftovers. You're allowed to be angry. Just don't let it rot you. Sometimes we argued. Sometimes we sat in silence. But we were never afraid of each other. That alone made it feel like home. And then one October morning, she didn't come downstairs. I knew, before I even reached her door. The funeral was small. A few neighbors, a couple of Grandma's old friends from church. The lawyer handed me a folder and said, she was very clear about what she wanted. The house was now mine. No debts, no liens, just an old creaky home with a leaky roof and hardwood floors that groaned when it rained. I was 22 and I didn't have much money, but I had something most people my age didn't: a place to call my own. Then the emails started. Not from Grandma's friends, from them. First came the texts. Hey Mia, heard about Nora. Sorry for your loss. We were thinking maybe we could reconnect. Then came the guilt. I know things have been tense, but we're still family. Your sister really looks up to you. Then the bomb. She got into Cal State. Great program, no scholarship. We're short. Could you maybe take out a small mortgage on the house? Just a little one. You wouldn't be paying it, obviously. Of course, because who else would be expected to mortgage their stability for someone else's convenience? I stared at the message for a while. Not because I was tempted, just because I needed a moment to fully appreciate the audacity. They hadn't spoken to me in nearly a decade by now. Their early attempts to get me back had ended a long while ago. But now that I owned property, suddenly I was important again. Funny how that works. I didn't respond, so they doubled down. First it was my mom calling, then my dad, then both together on speakerphone. "Mia, sweetheart," my mom said, her voice syrupy enough to give someone diabetes. "We're not asking you to give us anything. Just a little help." "You're in a good position," my dad added. "You have a house. Your sister's future is on the line here." They kept saying "your sister," like I didn't remember all the times she locked me out of our shared room, then cried to our parents that I was being controlling. Like I didn't remember when she flushed one of my birthday cards down the toilet and said I was too sensitive. I hung up. They tried again the next day. This time it was a group text. All of them, parents, siblings, even my aunt who once called me the family's moody middle mistake. "We really thought you'd want to help. This could change her life. We're not asking for much. It's not like you earned that house." That last one? That was my brother. The same brother who once broke Grandma's ceramic angel collection and blamed it on me. I blocked the number. 3 days later, they showed up. I was in the middle of repotting one of Grandma's succulents. Don't ask me why. I just needed something to do with my hands that didn't involve throwing them. There was a knock on the door, and then they were on the porch. All of them. My mom, with her tight-lipped smile. My dad holding a folder like he thought this was a business meeting. And my sister, standing behind them, pretending to look humble and not like the smug golden child she'd always been. I opened the door just wide enough to lean on the frame. "Wow," I said. "All this for little old me?" My mom launched in immediately. "We're just here to talk." Face to face. Like a family. Was leaving me at a gas station also a family conversation? She flinched. Only a little. "Progress?" "Mia," my dad said, in his you-need-to-be-reasonable voice. "We know things got complicated, but it's been years. Your sister has this opportunity, and we don't want to see it wasted." I looked at my sister. She gave me the same tight-lipped smile our mother wore. Copy-paste. I already said no. "But why?" she said, voice soft. "You don't even need the money. You live here alone. Grandma would have wanted—" "Grandma left this house to me," I cut in, "not to a committee. Not with conditions, and not because she wanted it used as a college fund for the kid who didn't even show up to her funeral." That one landed. My sister's face hardened. "You're seriously going to throw that in my face? You're seriously going to act like you deserve anything from me?" My mom stepped in. "You're being cruel." "She's your sister." "She's your favorite," I corrected. "There's a difference." My dad, clearly tired of the dramatics, opened his folder. "Look, we've already spoken to a mortgage advisor. It's a good deal. The payments would be minimal." I didn't even let him finish. I pulled out my phone and sent one text. My neighbor and good friend Lena was there in under 2 minutes. Now, you have to understand something about my neighbor Lena. She's 5'0", retired corrections officer, hair like a steel wool halo, and the kind of woman who could clear a room just by narrowing her eyes. She calls everyone sweetheart, in a tone that makes it sound like a threat. She showed up on my porch holding a mug of tea and wearing a sweatshirt that said, "Not today, Satan." "Is there a problem?" she asked mildly. My mom turned, startled. "Excuse me, this is a family. This is a doorstep," Lena interrupted. "And I know whose it is." My dad raised a brow. "We're having a private conversation." Lena smiled. "Oh, good. Then you won't mind having it somewhere else?" They stared at her for a beat too long, like they weren't sure if she was kidding. She wasn't. "Go," I said. before this turns into a police call. My mom looked at me like I'd slapped her. After everything we've done for you? That was it. I laughed. Out loud. It was ugly and loud and cracked in the middle, but it was real. You mean, like the time you forgot to pick me up from school in the rain? Or the Christmas I got socks while everyone else got iPads? Or the time you left me at a gas station and told me to figure it out? My sister rolled her eyes. God, Mia. That was forever ago. Yeah, I said. And I'm still the only one who paid the price. They left. Not right away. There was some huffing, a few muttered insults. My mom did the slow dramatic turn like she thought I might stop her. My sister whispered something that probably had the word selfish in it. My dad gave me one last look, like he was waiting for me to feel guilty. I didn't. I shut the door. Lena sat with me after, sipping her tea like nothing had happened. You okay, sweetheart? I think I am, I said. Finally. That night, I made Grandma's soup recipe. Lentils, too much garlic, the way she liked it. I sat at the kitchen table and ate it slowly, feeling the quiet settle into the corners of the house. No one was coming to take it from me. No one was coming to tell me who I had to be. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I chose myself. I didn't have money to burn. I didn't have a degree from some shiny school or a family that bragged about me at dinner parties, but I had peace. And I had a front door that only opened to people who knew what love actually looked like. 10 years ago, they told me to take the bus home. I didn't, and I never will. It's been 2 years since that day on the porch. No one from my family has shown up since. Not physically anyway. Sometimes I still get those weird passive-aggressive emails around the holidays. Stuff like, hope you're doing well, your sister just made Dean's List. As if that's supposed to crack me open like a walnut. But it doesn't. I still live in this house. I fixed the leaky roof, painted the kitchen a soft green. Got a dog. His name's Basil. He snores louder than any person I've ever met and chews exactly 1 slipper per month like it's a subscription box. I work full-time now, still study part-time. I make my own money, I pay my own bills, I live on my own terms. And every once in a while, I drive past the gas station where it all started, just to remind myself how far I've come. But sometimes, late at night, I still wonder, did I do the right thing? Or did I go too far? Did I protect myself? Or shut the door too hard on people who maybe, could have changed? I don't know. But I do know this. The girl they left behind? She never would have had the guts to ask those questions out loud, and the woman I've become? She's still figuring it out. If you've ever been in a situation like this, or even close, tell me what you think. Did I do the right thing? Leave a comment. I'm listening. And if you want to hear more stories like this one, hit subscribe.